I want to speak to the fact that, like, as a journalist to journalist, I think it's important that when we're trying to do the work of minorities, right, whatever, for you to center reverse racism and to question black students and to ask them, like, oh, no, I need, like, a serious answer, right? Like, you are giving space to systems that are already here, and it's a disrespect as a black journalist to be at an HBCU and even use the word reverse racism, right? And I know probably, like, working at Vice, that's what you have to do, but it is such an affront to, like, the work of black journalists to sit there and ask a scholar about reverse racism for a white boy. Like, there are so many other questions you should have, like, that could have been asked, and, like, I'm thoroughly disappointed in that journalist, and I hope to God, like, that he never has to report another piece on race.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
I said what I said.
Yeah,
and that's
I'm not
it.
changing on it. So what do you want to do? You want to keep going? You want to put action on it?
Well, the video kept going, and it did. I think it went on for like 20 minutes, and there was a. They mentioned that he is the president of Grace Hall. And you had mentioned earlier that Grace Hall, that was the dorm that
Martin Luther King is slipping.
That was the beginning of
Martin Luther King is rolling in his
That was
grave,
the beginning of Morehouse.
But literally, Grace Hall is not only the beginning of Morehouse, but again, this idea of black space, the graves, under which the name of the building is named, his tomb is right there. Like, his tomb is right there. And a white man is the overseer of the building that
Say it plain. Say it
and
plain.
I want to be very honest as well. We understand none of us here are negligent or unaware of the history of white people in the creation of Morehouse, right? So Morehouse is named after a white man.
Right.
You know, a lot of the people who
Spelman is named
after a white woman.
Yep.
And these places,
founded by white people.
Right. These spaces were bought with white money.
Yep.
So we're not unaware of that, but we are also aware that black people have always had to negotiate and navigate and restructure and remap space to exist in it. And once we do that, once black people enter a space and decide that this is going to be the place where we do sacredness, this is going to be the place where we do ritual, this is going to be the place where we begin to create and build culture, that space becomes holy.
Yep.
And that space becomes holy in a very black ancestral way. And that ancestry is never able to be divorced from the legacy of slavery that has made it possible for black people to have to create space under these conditions. And when a white body enters that space, they are, in a way, blaspheming the tradition that is black space making. And that's something that Tiago has to wrestle with, has to really think through. What does it mean to be a white body that's always already approaching the domination of a space because of its mild whiteness?
Like, they stereotype black people in society, but there are elements to black culture, like the hospitality.
I couldn't find stereotype black label society.
LOL.
Oh,
The feds.
Yeah, they're listening.
The block is hot.
The block is hot. Well, I mean, bling bling, all that type of shit works. So there was a point in the documentary, if we want to call it that.
Sure.
And they were in the dorm room, and he said that black people deal with stereotypes. Of course, we all know that. That's late as fuck. But then the phone rang or something. Siri came up.
Right.
Siri
heard the word.
She said, and he said, the feds.
Right. He looked at to his phone.
The feds.
He looked at the guy and said, the feds.
Which, like, I think...
So was he giving us... What's his name?
first?
Yeah, so, like, I just want to say for context, so, like, when we were watching this a few minutes ago, like, we literally had to stop the video because we couldn't keep watching it as a white man said, oh, the feds.
Because he is the fed.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like,
get into that.
What do you mean he's the feds? I mean, even the white guy on Black Panther tried to say...
and was he not the feds? Literally? He was the CIA agent.
Literally the CIA.
like
there is no Wakanda forever.
There is no Wakanda forever. Wakanda sometimes.
y'all to let it
Wakanda every now and again.
Well,
I want y'all to let it go.
Okay.
Wakanda Monday through Tuesday.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
I find it funny. Was it kind of When he said that, did you feel like that was kind of disgusting?
No, I mean yes, because like so I don't know how you talk in one breath about not being at Morehouse to quote unquote be black or act black because you don't understand
Right.
the stereotype behind that,
Right.
and then use language that is specific to African American vernacular English, AAVE, like that we have formulated as a direct response to whiteness in which he fits. Like I don't know how like I don't know, girl.
Hey, I think the other part is that maybe Vice edited it, but I feel like he just doesn't have the range to even be here. Like he doesn't even have the range to understand why saying "oh the feds" makes no sense.
The funny thing
because
is,
he
it
doesn't
sounds like he has
understand
as
it.
much of a range as a white man is going to get.
I mean,
Do you
that's
feel like his friends and stuff enable some of this stuff? Like, do you feel like watching people like do you feel like Tiago? Do you feel like, because we've seen videos where we see the white girl twerk and we see the white guy step.
This is something.
Do you feel like sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, like look at him being black, I love it.
I think it's two part.
Okay.
So, in one part, I don't care to put the onus on black folk,
Right.
because it is not blackness or black people that like created this need to center to always praise whiteness. Like that is a result of whiteness. So like I don't want to put the onus on them or us on blackness.
Right.
But on the other hand, like in the second part, I'm also like, just because your black friends allow you to do these things does not mean that this is how you enter every space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like because if you are claiming to be showing up in this space, not trying to be black, not wanting to add to the stereotype of what black people act like, and then you use language that is specific to us that I know you're not using with your white friends, then you have another problem. But even if you are using it with your white friends, like that just means that you and your white friends are even more invested in anti-blackness or racism or anti-black racism than you maybe like to believe. But I guess like my frustration with him like is that's almost inevitable for when white people enter into our spaces.
Yeah.
They will never not pick up on like our culture and our language and use it. Like you witness that with Madonna and her weaponization or her colonizing of ballroom culture, right? Like you witness that with Eminem and all of them in hip hop. You witness that with Kardashian, Miley Cyrus, all of them, like and they're like colonization of black culture, black all of that, like across the board. So like it's almost
Oh, whatever that.
whatever.
Logic. Tech Nine is black.
Oh well.
Logic is barely black. Logic is white. Tech Nine is black.
He good.
Every MLK.
On every MLK Boulevard. No, so
We know
like,
Tiago is not.
we know Tiago is not that. So like, I just know that like that is we have a very specific history when it comes to that, and it's inevitable that they're going to use our culture and our language when they enter this space, which is why I staunchly hold the position and have for very many years now, like that non-black people, anyone who is not black, does not belong in an HBCU.
Right.
So,
And sorry, I was gonna say lastly. So I also feel like it's important to remember that like if Tiago, Morehouse, whoever, Vice were real allies, they could have just not have done this.
right.
It's so easy.
Right, like
It's so
they could have came to Morehouse and spoken to queer folks. They could have spoken to people from low-income backgrounds who have to live through like an elitist campus. Like there's so many other narratives that are important. But Tiago, Vice, and Morehouse all agreed to center him because whiteness is important. When if he was really about it, if Tiago was really about black people, he could have just said no. There's plenty of other stories here that need that type of platform.
Absolutely. If we were to choose, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Oh, Jesus.
We have a message. We only have one message. If you were to give it, would you give it to Morehouse administration, Tiago, or Tiago's friends,
Or Vice.
or Vice?
Right.
Who would your message go to, and what would you say?
I think my message would go to Tiago's friends because Tiago's friends are black, and the reason why I'm choosing Tiago's black friends is because like I've said on multiple occasions, I'm only interested in intimate struggle with black people.
Right.
So I'm not really interested in trying to get Tiago to get it, because Tiago will not, as you already said. And I'm not interested in Morehouse because I understand Morehouse to be a corporation and enterprise, and Morehouse TM, and that structure is never going to do anything but colonize and capitalize.
We wasted enough time on Morehouse College.
Right, and so is Vice, right? And so I'm interested in Tiago's friends because I'm wondering what their racial analysis is. And where do we need to meet in the middle? Because what is really scary
in the middle,
right? Meet in the middle.
Yes.
What's really scary to me is when watching the video. What perturbed me more is that Tiago's friends, many of them, seem to edge up on just enough black analysis to say they go to an HBCU, but not have any analysis thorough enough to tell Tiago not to have done this in the first place.
Right.
And I think that means that there is something broken in the curriculum that's at Morehouse. And that goes back to the point about the pedagogical, the pedagogical whiteness. The pedagogical whiteness of Morehouse College in and of itself. And this is not to, and I also want to be honest, that many of my mentors go to our professors at Morehouse. So there are people like Ilya Davis who is a flawed human being, right? But there's people like Ilya Davis and people like Daniel Black and people like Rebecca Kumar and brown and black folk who teach at Morehouse College who get it, people like Allison Ligon who are highly invested in making a black-centered, nuanced conversation go on, life-changing conversation go on in the classroom. However, by and large, Morehouse has been able to exist and insist by staying true to whiteness as epistemological truth, as a way of knowing. And that's a problem. And that's showing up in the black people's analysis and in Tiago's.
What about you?
Bitch, I'm looking at you. I'm not going next.
What about you?
So I'll say that I'm interested in a kind of, I'm interested in a mix of things. I'm interested in Vice and also Tiago's friends, mainly
double.
Right, a kind of
double
a half and half. So Vice specifically, Vice has a history of protecting abusers, of not censoring black and brown lives and stories. So I'm not really shocked, but I'm disappointed to see a publication that really nurtured me as a journalist and really nurtured my ability to think about global struggle. Like I watched Vice to learn about the Gaza bombings and to learn about Palestine.
Wow.
Like that was my first time engaging with that was through Vice. But to see them not only use one of their very few black journalists on staff for this very disappointing narrative, but also to see the journalists play into it. It's just disheartening, and it shows me that like I never need to work for Vice ever. And then I'm also interested in Tiago's friends because just with the conversations I've had with them in my mentions, which you don't need to be in, I've noticed that the only response I'm getting is that black people only know how to discriminate against white people by using white people's tactics, and that's really not how that works. And like I just want his friends and the people that support him to think about the fact that like we can do more than defend white people who aren't defending you, and that Tiago as an ally or accomplice or whatever could be doing much more work, right? Like when he came to the H Shut It Down meeting, it was a conversation, but even with Tiago not saying a word, people were protecting him. People were like, oh, I don't want to offend you. Oh, I don't mean to say this in a harsh way, even though he was saying nothing. And I think that speaks to what Jordan is saying is like, even if he is doing just breathing, black folks are accommodating to him. And I think his friends, in a way that they may not realize, feel the need to be as close to that whiteness to feel like they can be a part of a different narrative about the AUC, and to be accepting and different and diverse. But the reality is these spaces were made by black folks for a reason. And I think it does say something about what we're learning in schools. I think it says a lot about what Spelman is teaching us about what it means to be a Spelmanite, to be a Spelman student, and to like see how like folks aren't there yet. It makes me sad, but I also have complete hope that they're going to get there, even if it is with a little bit of struggle and a little bit of beef. I feel like this conversation is important, and if we don't have it, then will get people catering for white folks who don't give a fuck about them.
And maybe Tiago is the 21st century Morehouse man. And I think that
You're being
thinking
serious.
through that, I'm being very serious.
Yes.
And I mean, thinking through that means that throws into higher crisis than ever before what this configuration, this quagmire called Morehouse man really is.
Right.
And I think that if Tiago has done anything, Tiago has really crystallized the issue that is Morehouse College in the 21st century. This kind of this palading or this production of a Morehouse manhood that is vacuous and can be filled by anybody, including a white body.
Well, Batuna.
It's you.
What were the 4 options again?
Administration,
Oh.
his friends, Tiago,
Advice.
for advice. I think you want to go across the board. Honestly.
Absolutely.
Read them all. We have time.
Well, this
Oh.
is the administration.
This is really
The
Tiago.
smallest cup.
Right.
So I don't even know that I would so much struggle with the administration as much as I would just say that we've spent the last 4 years talking to y'all
Right.
and you've not done shit.
Right.
You're not going to do shit. You are not shit.
Hello.
So I don't feel a need to sit in spaces like that with them anymore unless they're paying us because they've exploited enough of our labor already.
Period.
Moving on to Tiago.
Next case. It's about the same colors, you know.
Basically. A little brown.
A little spicy.
A little.
A little spicy.
Yeah.
I think with Tiago, I think I would just tell him that I think he gets that it's not so much about him as it is about what he represents and about systems of which he benefits from. And so I think I would just tell him like, girl, it's really not about you, but you need to leave.
Simple.
Like
That's really it.
and I know that comes off very harsh to people, but non-black people do not belong at HBCUs.
And that's not exclusive to white people.
It's not exclusive to
That
white
goes
people. It's
against
also non-black Latinx folks. It's also non-black Asian folks. It's also non-black, whatever you want to call your ethnicity. Whatever. If you do not identify as black, you don't belong there. Period. Point blank. Because we have worked way too damn hard to build spaces like Morehouse, specific to us, for non-black students to come in and be at the center of attention, at the center of the narrative, and to have their stories told always, and for us to always be heavily ignored. I think all of us have witnessed that, and I won't name names but all of us have witnessed that with like non-black Latinx folks at Morehouse and like folks who get to be so loud and so deeply at the center of attention in our spaces because we prioritize them, because we've been taught since birth, we've been socialized into believing that non-blackness has to be at the center always. So I don't think that black folks or non-black folks deserve to be or should be in our spaces ever. So Tiago needs to leave. Moving on from him.
All right, you go.
Tiago's friends.
Oh God.
They're black kings.
I think those would be who I struggle with the most because I've given up on Morehouse administration giving a damn. But what I know is that when you struggle with folks who cultivate, who make culture, they change it.
Right.
And so my concern with them, is that if I can talk to you and I get you to understand really why this matters and why it matters to give a damn about who's in this space and about why it's important for us to talk about preserving this space and why it's important for us to not struggle with white folks and their comfortability in our space, but rather dealing with queer folks and trans folks, undocumented folks, etc. in our space who deserve to be here, survivors in our space who deserve to be here because they are black. Let's struggle over that first and only and not worry about whiteness and what it feels in our space.
Right.
Moving on for them.
Damn, the black kings are gone.
Ask for advice. Baby, give it up.
Give it up, delicious.
Give it up, delicious, because you look like a man. It's trying to go. Like,
if
black has been white supremacist since its origin.
So, but they try to present themselves as something else.
Well, and I will say, like,
Ally presenting?
they have.
I think Vice is the
reported,
pinnacle of neoliberalism.
right? Exactly. And I mean, and I remember like even being in high school and watching the Gaza bombings, and then having like the pure whitest man in Palestine, but you wouldn't think to have like a brown person in that space, right? Because this white man was struggling to navigate like what the fuck was going on. So Vice has always been about neoliberalism, always been about capitalism, and that's not going to change.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just want to. I have to say that, like. Can I ask a quick question? What is neoliberalism?
Vital. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Really quickly.
That is a very contested
2018
definition.
It is. It's a.
Give us a quick.
Yeah.
It's
the
a
word
Jordan's got it,
contested
though.
definition.
It's a.
You got it.
I barely
It
have
is.
it.
It is a very contested. Like a lot of folks.
No, discourses, like
Right.
political
Papers.
scientists,
Scholars.
discourse about this. It's like psychology's nature versus nurture debate. Honestly, like no one really has a solid definition for neoliberalism. There are a lot of books out there about
Anything you
it.
suggest to read?
So what do y'all think neoliberalism is?
I think that neoliberalism, just in a short, succinct way, neoliberalism can be thought of as the reworking of liberalist ideas that are based upon race-free, gender-free, intersectional analyses of liberty, freedom, and democracy that hold true or try to hold true to these ideas about freedom and the ability to be progressive and the ability to have your one's rights and humanity without thinking about the ways in which race, gender, and all these other assemblages interrupt or intercede when one is trying to reach these things called liberty and democracy,
right.
and the ways in which liberty and democracy and all these other liberal terms are often bedfellows with anti-blackness itself.
And I think to add to that, it is exploitative, capitalistic, it takes on a new form of exploitation and capitalism.
Yes.
In that, like, because of these old, like, liberal viewpoints that do want to remove race and gender from how, like, I guess, like the interworkings of domination.
Right.
It also looks to, like, exploit marginalized people in ways that liberalism itself has not.
It's almost like the velvet glove of domination.
Right.
Like it,
So it's
it
like-
allows domination to look pretty and look like it's for these higher ideals or American ideas, right?
Okay.
But it's really reworking the same type of American tropes: capitalism, colonization.
It is.
So that's what we
Jack Daniels with rainbow colored.
It's Pride
Yeah.
Month. So
Yeah.
Vice is that, and we just done with them. Or we just we're not done.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm done. I wouldn't say I'm done with
my pitch, so I'm done with
I
this.
would. Oh my gosh. I wouldn't say I'm done with Vice because they do have Broadly, which is a great site that does really great work. Zoe Samazi does really great work on Broadly. She's a column there.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I'm not completely done with Vice. I'm done with this journalist, Lee Adams. I'm done with the production. Right. I'm done with the video part of Vice that is disingenuous and really doesn't give a fuck about black and brown stories, just about neoliberal ideas that just capitalize off of our pain.
And I'm done with the objectification of black people and things in space.
Yes.
Like, I think one thing that has been true for Vice, and what really fundamentally makes it neoliberal, if we didn't get a solid definition, this might be a perfect example,
Right.
is that it used black space as a sort of case study or from a very white gaze perspective. It palettes itself to make difference known to whiteness,
Right.
which still traffics in the same dominating discourses and ways of interacting and knowing that white supremacy has been recycling for years. So I think, if anything, Vice needs to lay down, the white gaze for a bit.
Will they ever though? I don't think they can.
And I don't think it can. And that gets into a whole discussion about visual studies and things like that. But nonetheless,
Well, you heard it here.
We're done.
Do the work today. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, you have one more?
I just have a final comment.
Final.
And I think this will humanize the conversation in a way that we haven't gotten to yet.
Right.
And that is just to say that in my years at Morehouse, I sat in classrooms with Dr. Mark Lamont Hill, who taught me about the Palestinian struggle, right? I sat in classrooms with Dr. Sam Livingston, who taught me about blackness globally, who taught me about how blackness shows up in India through the Dalit people and how it shows up through in the Congo, in Africa, and taught me about how that, the interworkings of blackness around the world. I've had professors like Professor Natasha Walker, who has made English a very cultural space that is not centered around whiteness, that is not centered around white people. I've had professors like Dr. Daniel Black and Professor Fox who have introduced me to writing and reading in a whole different way that you don't find anywhere else, and that you won't find anywhere else. And I think that when we start allowing whiteness to really permeate our spaces culturally, we take away from the importance of building spaces in that way that really cultivate black minds in a way that you won't find anywhere else. And I just think that's an integral point to mention, because it's not. I don't want folks. I know what folks will say, especially about my harsh point about Tiago leaving. I don't want folks to say that I am demanding that he leave because it's a personal thing, right? I don't think that he or anyone who is non-black belongs in that space, because we cannot. When we start selling blackness for coin and taking away the culture that allows that space to exist, we remove the teachings that you get from Dr. Daniel Black, from Professor Walker, from Dr. Livingstone, from Dr. Mark Lamont Hill, from Dr. LeVar Smith. You don't have that anymore. And so I think that it is Morehouse, as much as I critique it, as many critiques as I have of it, Morehouse is too important of a space to allow white folks and whiteness to take over it and remove us from that space.
Well, you heard it. Get to it. Would you all sit down with Tiago if you had?
Absolutely not.
Find out on the next episode.
Find out next.
In the middle.